everyone. Welcome back inside Centura Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and coming up on today's episode, the Broncos hit the road in just 2 days for their first road trip of the season. We'll hear from head coach Sean Payton, quarterback Russell Wilson, and cornerback Pat Surtain as they all look ahead to face the Miami Dolphins this Sunday. All that and more coming up. The Broncos will hit the road in just 2 days for their first road trip of the season. They'll also look to grab their first win of the season as they face the Miami Dolphins this Sunday. We heard from both head coach Sean Payton and quarterback Russell Wilson about how they both have experience starting seasons 0-2 and making the playoffs. They discuss how they use those experiences to approach this week.
17, was one of those years. We opened the season at Minnesota, and it was also when the Super Bowl was going to be played in Minnesota. I remember, collectively as a team, we wanted to start the season in Minnesota and end it there. Now, I didn't know how correct I'd be. We ended up in Minnesota for the divisional round and losing in a tough loss. But yeah, we lost week 1. We lost week 2, a tough loss to New England. And, we had 2 road trips. And we were at Carolina, a good Carolina team, and then to London versus Miami. So listen, you got to get on to the next game. You got to make the corrections. You can't just blindly say, all right, you got to make the corrections, and then this will be a good test for us. Good team we're playing, obviously.
Definitely been to the playoffs. Before been down 0-2. The good thing is you got more pitches coming. More games to play, and so you don't blink. And I think that. I think the biggest thing is staying focused on the task and staying focused on progress, staying focused on the journey. The great thing about the game of football, it's a collective effort and it's a journey, and it's one of those journeys that you have to love the process. And you want to steady grow along the way, and I think that we're definitely doing that. We feel really confident on what we can do and where we can be. But what really matters is today's practice and being great today, and then add it up tomorrow, and then. And hopefully by the time we get on that plane on Friday, we're ready to rock, and then, have a great walkthrough on Saturday, and here goes the ball kicked off on Sunday, and play a great 4 quarters, and that's what really matters.
Both head coach Sean Payton and quarterback Russell Wilson also talked about how the offense has gotten off to fast starts in the first 2 games, but the momentum in the second half hasn't been there. They discussed how they'll look to finish these games moving forward.
I think we just have to play cleaner in the third quarter. Coming out, in the third quarter is a really important quarter, especially when we get the ball. And when we defer, it's a good thing because, we get the ball. Hopefully, the first game we scored right before half with, 15 seconds left or whatever it was in the first game. We got the ball back, and we that first drive, we want to come out and really excel. Same thing in the second game. We got to come out and excel in that part of it. So that's just the focus, and be able to do that. That's something, that detail, and all of us doing it together.
Plus, quarterback Russell Wilson has faced Vic Fangio's defense many times throughout his time in the league and discussed what makes his defense so good.
Well, I've gone against Coach Fangio many times, obviously, early on in Seattle, when he was at the defensive coordinator for 49ers, the Bears, just different places that he's been. He's a tremendous, defensive coordinator. He knows how to coach the guys up. He's one of those, coaches that are all-time greats, to be honest with you. Especially on the defensive side of the ball and how he coaches. And so, for us, we're going to have to be playing really clean football, really good. He's going to do a lot of different things. He's going to have, different players. He's going to have Chubb dropping out sometimes. He's going to have him rushing off from all over the place. He's going to have different guys moving around. But just understanding, where guys are and what they're trying to do on defense and playing a clean game.
Plus, cornerback Pat Surtain also spoke to the media today and added to that about how much he learned from Vic Fangio in his first year here in Denver.
Yeah, Vic was a great coach. Obviously, his defensive scheme is being ran across the league. So, like you said, 30 years of coaching, his experience is through the roof. And I know he has a great defense in store. And, when I was here my first couple of years with him, first year with him, I sort of got adjusted quick because, he put us in positions, to make plays. And that's what I seen out of his defensive scheme. He puts his players in positions to make plays, in their skill set. So.
Plus, Pat Surtain and Sean Payton went on to talk about Tyreek Hill and the challenge that he'll present this Sunday.
Yeah, he possesses like a unique skill trait. Obviously, he has the speed, but his short area quickness is an issue as well too. And the Dolphins do a good job of moving him around in certain positions for him to succeed. And studying the first couple of weeks, that's what I've been seeing. Motioning him, putting him in areas to create success for the offense. So, we're going to key in and hone in on that and, just prepare for that this week.
He's extremely explosive. I would say there's two things that I never hear, but that I see on tape with him. He's got great football IQ, not good. He's savvy. He understands coverages, leverage. And then the second thing is I'd say he's got outstanding stamina. Like he's next play. All of a sudden there's a go, so those are two things that I notice aside from what we all see. I think he's got really good football instincts and he can go for a number of plays.
Now it's time to take a look at today's injury report. Outside linebacker Frank Clark, defensive tackle Mike Purcell, and safety Justin Simmons all did not participate at practice today. Plus, tackle Garrett Bowles was limited. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio to take a more in-depth look at today's news is fellow team reporter Phil Milani. Phil, thanks for hopping on the show again today.
Good, thank you. It must be Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
Always happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on, Phil. We just saw the injury report from today, so I want to talk about Justin Simmons. He did not participate in practice with a hip injury. Obviously don't know kind of what his status will be, but looking at some of the depth in that room, I mean, there's a lot of guys who are injured right now.
Yeah, that was a sort of a surprise because he played the entire game against Washington on Sunday. It did seem like he made a few tackles in that game, so maybe something happened there. Hard to really speculate or get into how much, but hip is a kind of a thing where you're like, ooh, that can mean a lot of different things. Is it a bruise? Is it a strain? Just like what? How bad is that? But yeah, I mean, I think everybody hopes that Justin Simmons is able to go on Sunday. If he's not, it's that cupboard is starting to get a little bare there for the Broncos. Obviously, Caden Stearns out, early, and
PJ Locke's also injured right now.
Is out. Yep. And then you sort of saw what happened there when Kareem Jackson got ejected from that game. Yeah. Then Delarin Turner, Yell was out there, and it's hard to just jump into a game action like that. And then all of a sudden, Sam Howell's throwing deep to McLaren there, Terry McLaren in the end zone. So that's a tough position to just jump out into the field. So that's a good. I'm not sure what they would do. Obviously JL Skinner is a rookie there. Yeah. Maybe he'll just have to get thrown into the fire a little bit. Or they also have a player on the practice squad too. That could be a good option too.
I know Isang Bassi, he's kind of played. Safety, but he's kind of in that slot spot right now as well with K1 out.
Yeah, exactly. So the secondary, we all thought coming into this year was going to be a real strength of this Broncos defense. But, this is what happens in the NFL. A couple guys go down here or there, and then all of a sudden, your depth is really being stressed and challenged there. So, the way the NFL works is, hey, Miami and Mike McDaniel, they're watching that tape, and they're like, how did Washington have all this success? Right. Then they'll say, okay, we're going to do the same thing, So until the Broncos can figure out how to stop that, the teams are going to keep, putting a lot of pressure on the Broncos safeties.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at the defense in general, Phil, I know Pat Surtain, he spoke to the media today and kind of talked about, the issues that they were having that they're looking to fix and focusing on the details there. What do you think, I guess, is the focus this week for this defense to try and improve?
A lot of different things, that was just a lot of a struggle, against Washington there. The first week, the Broncos held the Raiders to 17 points, but it was the offense that couldn't quite get it rolling there. Then this last week, the offense puts up 33 points, but the defense gives up 35. So, you're like, which Broncos defense are we going to see this week? But yeah, anytime, we were talking about this on the postgame show, right. Nick Ferguson said, anytime your safeties are making a lot of tackles, it's never a good sign.
Thing. Yeah.
So, it was happening on all three levels, I think, of the defense, just where, things just weren't as crisp as, you would have liked. And Sean Payton talks about the exactness, how you have to play. There were penalties. There were guys who were, missing their assignments, filling the wrong gaps. The running game really got going for Washington there. Brian Robinson had that 15-yard touchdown, just walked into the end zone there. So it was really, you can't blame just like one or two people. It was happening all across all the levels of the defense. And look, they know that they got to be better than that, and that must have been a disappointing performance for them. And, you just need guys who are going to the ball, playing full speed, giving it their all out there. And, I bet a lot of these things will get cleaned up this week.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, Phil, looking at the offense, I know the past two games we've seen them get off to a really good start, but not have that same momentum in the second half. Yeah, and I know Russell Wilson, he talked about that today, about that's really the focus, moving forward.
Get better, yeah.
Yeah, talked about in that Washington game, the first half, he said was, arguably the best football he's played with this team so far.
Gosh, yeah. And it looked like he was having fun out there too. After some of those deep passes, you saw him kind of like, celebrating down the field, and you really saw Marvin Mims, his speed on display out there. Brandon Johnson, getting it done out there.
Right.
Even McLaughlin, people are like, hey, he scores a touchdown every time he touches the ball. Why don't they give him more touches? So, puzzling how they could be so hot and then a couple of things don't quite go their way, and then it's just hard to find that rhythm and that momentum again. And that's another thing that the Broncos are just gonna have to figure out how to get this done for an entire game. And once they fell behind and then they were in obvious passing downs, that Washington front really got going, and that was the strength of their defense there, and they were able to sack Russ 7 times. So 9 times he's been sacked through the first 2 weeks. That's the most the Broncos have given up since 1983 when John Elway was a rookie.
Wow.
So
that's a good stat right there, Phil.
Yeah, I know. Numbers to know.
Yeah, love it.
So they got to get better in their protection, I think. They got to have a more consistent running game, and then it'll open up a lot of things for this team. And, even Mike McGlinchey was saying, the same thing is like, look, all of us got to play like a little bit better. He talked about the struggles that he had a couple of times in that game. And I think everybody's looking inward first, and saying, I got to be better. How can I do this? And I think the frustrating thing for fans is you see the glimpses, when they're on, you're like, gosh, this could be a really good offense. But so you see the signs, you just got to see that over the course of the whole game. And, there's a couple possessions. I know the Broncos, coming out of the locker room, going 3 and out there, just moments like that. I know that they've talked about this a lot, just saying, if we're just can get a little something more there or here, maybe you're talking about a different outcome, but definitely momentum, I think, has a lot to do with it. And, Russ had turned the ball over a couple of times. He talked about that a little bit, and
penalties,
things like this just hurt the flow of your offense. And when they're in momentum and in the groove, they put up 21 points like really fast.
Yeah.
Then when you get out of sync a little bit, it's just hard to do it. So.
Well, I know head coach Sean Payton, he kind of talked about some of the communication issues that we saw in offense and how they're going to reduce some of the verbiage there. And he said they worked on that last night, Tuesday night, and today was kind of the first practice out there with that new.
He said, that they actually always have a wristband out there. And that's because some of the plays in their playbook are long.
Right.
So then he said that sometimes you'll just say, hey, Russ, use 2. That he hears that in his helmet. He's in the huddle, opens up his wristband. Then he just has to say the whole play. You just give that once instead of Sean saying it, then Russ saying it. Then everybody's got it. Then you go to the line of scrimmage, So he said even those plays, maybe they can reduce some of the verbiage. But he said that against Washington, maybe there were 4 or 5 plays or so that should have been added to the wristband that instead he was saying them. And then Russ had to repeat them. And then
it was taking a lot of time.
Taking too much time with some of those things. So, You know, I think that that's just an example of this is the first time this whole coaching staff has worked together.
Right.
It's the first time that Russ has been with Sean. It's the first time all of this is happening. And, you know, you're 2 weeks into the season, you know, or last game, you're just, 4 or 5 quarters into the season doing it for real. These are things that they'll try to get cleaned up a little bit. And, you know, I think that that's a good sign, being like, hey, what works? What doesn't work? How can we improve these things?
100%.
One of the things that they identified that they need to improve is the communication. And we even saw that in the first half where they had to use all their timeouts. But even that second to last drive, you're down 11 points. You got to have this urgency. You got to try and hurry up a little bit. But they were having some of these communication problems. And for a coach like Sean Payton, who's so detail-oriented, that kind of stuff drives him crazy. So you got to clean that up. And this whole operation is going to, week by week, get better and better and better and better.
For sure. Well, Phil, sticking with the offense here, looking ahead to Sunday's game versus the Dolphins, obviously we know Vic Fangio well here.
Yeah.
Russ has played against Vic Fangio many times, his defense. So definitely going to be a really tough test on the road.
Yes. I think that Russ is 5-3 all time against Vic Fangio's defenses. But yes, obviously we know Vic Fangio. Yeah. He's a defensive mastermind. You saw how good those Broncos defenses were when he was the head coach here. And now with Miami, the first week against the Chargers, they gave up a lot of points. But that's, I would sort of attribute that to, hey, it's week 1. You don't know what you're going to get.
Newness of a coach.
They're on the road against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL here. So the Chargers put up a lot of points. But last week, you really saw him get after Mac Jones and the Patriots. So, that's going to be a big test. Sean Payton said that you go back and you look at Vic Fangio defenses, you know, whether it's in San Francisco, whether it's in Chicago, and then you say, okay, what things worked against those defenses.
Right.
Then come Sunday, if they're starting to see some of the same tendencies, that's when you pull that out of your bag and say, hey, this is what worked against that Chicago defense. It's 2018. This worked against that Chicago defense. Let's pull that out now. And those are the types of things that coaches have to do. That's why they're here all through the hours of the night studying these plays, because they're like, hey, 2018 Chicago, okay, what worked in this one game? Boom. Yeah. Then they have to install that. So, it's going to be a big test. Bradley Chubb is obviously
good to see him again.
Edge. Mike McGlinchey talked about the challenge that it's going to be facing Bradley Chubb. So, this is from top to bottom, offense and defense. This is a good Miami team. You feel like if Tua stays healthy, this team's going to be in the mix all the way till the end of the year.
100%. Yeah, I think looking at really the matchup to watch there, it's definitely going to be Pat Surtain versus Tyreek Hill.
Gosh. And obviously Jalen Waddle knows Pat very well.
Waddle, they were college roommates.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I learned that today.
Yeah, so they know each other very well.
Yeah.
And so if Waddle can get through the concussion protocol, he's going to be another big weapon for Miami here.
Sure.
So, but Tyreek, you heard Coach Payton and the amount of admiration that he has for Tyreek. He was saying that there's 2 things on tape that really stand out to him that nobody really talks about. He says that it's Tyreek's football smarts. He really knows how to leverage a defense, how to get that spacing where he's supposed to go, and then also his stamina. And that's something I hadn't really thought about, because you just think he's so fast.
He's so fast, right?
But he's running full speed down the field.
Good point. Every single play.
Next play, again and again and again. So
great point.
He's out there a lot. And so, that's going to be a tough test, and a different test than like a Devontae Adams, because, Pat's a bigger guy. He's fast, but he's bigger. He's certainly bigger than Tyreek. So he's going to have to use a different set of skills there to be able to match up with Tyreek. And it'll be interesting to see how they use Pat, if he's going to be on Tyreek the whole time or what they're going to do. But yes, that's definitely, Tyreek might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. So the plays that he made week 1 against the Chargers, he's a dynamic weapon. Unfortunately, Broncos fans know him very well from his time in Kansas City. Him running down the sideline, waving. you don't want to see that.
You don't. Yeah. Raheem Mostert, too.
Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
he's going to be a tough challenge for this defensive line, for sure.
He was a weapon in San Francisco when they were making those playoff runs. Now he's in Miami. And Mike McDaniel, he's a smart guy. Happened to go to my high school here in Aurora. So, we just turn out NFL products.
I love it, Phil.
He's a smart offensive mind there. So he's going to present some matchups that he's going to get his guys in space. And Mostert is definitely one of those guys who is a weapon from the backfield.
Yep, definitely will be a tough test on the road. First road game of the season for the Broncos.
First
home game for the
Miami.
Dolphins.
So, the Broncos, it feels like, they're 0-2, but they've lost those 2 games by combined 3 points.
3 points, yeah.
So you feel like, you're close. You got to figure out how to get this done. You got to figure out how to play a whole game. And, it's a big matchup. You don't want to go down 0-3, but you're facing one of the best teams in the NFL. So you're going on the road. This is a big one, Sid.
Yep, it is.
It's a big one.
We'll see what happens over the next couple of days here. Phil, appreciate you joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
And Broncos fans, don't forget, Paramount Plus is your streaming home for every local NFL and CBS game this season. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream Russell Wilson and the team as they battle the league's best. Plus, get an all-access pass to 24/7 NFL content with CBS Sports HQ, Fantasy Football Today, NFL Slime Time, and more. And this year, Paramount Plus is your streaming destination for Super Bowl 58. Another action-packed Broncos season with the NFL and CBS awaits, so stream Paramount Plus from any device all season long. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for another episode. I'll see you all then.